this is it's so it's not the biggest ever in the world.
Rebbe doesn't have to start now. It's just live until Rebbe's ready because you said 7. So.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna.
No, just Rebbe doesn't have to start now. Just
be
5
conscious
that
of
it's.
Okay. Okay, so let's learn. Okay. So I always have a hard time with it. I always have a hard time with the Tisha B'Av shir. First of all, Stam, I'm tired. Everyone's tired. That's Aleph. Also, you're limited with what you're able to do. I mean, I usually try to give over something of content, and that's always dangerous on Tisha B'Av. You walk the line of learning things that you're allowed to learn, not allowed to learn. So, the Leshem very often in his farm, whenever he talks about something very deep and profound, and afterwards he says "V'hurachim chapravim." So I'll say it before "V'hurachim chapravim." If at any point in this shir we learn things that maybe you're not supposed to learn Tisha B'Av, but what can you do? All right. So the question that we're going to try to answer is a very, very important and big question, which is why isn't Moshiach here yet? Why isn't Moshiach here yet? This is a very good question. It's a very good question. And a question like that needs more of a sophisticated answer than just we haven't been worthy yet. That's not really an answer to the question. So let's begin like this. The pasuk describing with the coming of Mashiach, it's famous that Chazal quote this, Bi'ita achishana. Bi'ita achishana. That Mashiach comes, as the pasuk describes, Bi'ita achishana, that in its right time I will hasten it. In its right time I will hasten it. So Chazal say in the Gemara Sanhedrin famously, that the way to darshan that pasuk is to break it up into 2 parts. Be'ita, achishana. That there's a predestined, allotted time for the coming of Mashiach. That's be'ita. And that will take place. We will get Mashiach be'ita, as the Gemara puts in Sanhedrin, if lo zachu. If we're not worthy, then Mashiach comes be'ita. However, if it's zachu, if we're zaycha, tshuva, ma'asim tovim, or whatnot, how we have the schos, we'll speak about soon, then it's achishana. Then we get Mashiach early. That's the drush of that pasuk, Vita versus Achishana. Now, there's a big inyan in the writings of the Gra. The Gra talks about this in a number of places in great depth, that although the drush is such a thing, that Vita is one option and Achishana is another, but the Gra was Megala that, practically speaking, the way Mashiach will come is Vita Achishana. That in its right time, it will be hastened. There is an inyan, there is a way of uniting those 2 mahalchim, those 2 paths of Gula, Vita and Achishana, where it's both the right time but hastened. Now, obviously, that's a paradox. How does that work? Either it's the right time or it's before the right time. So we're going to be trying to figure out what exactly does that mean, Be'ita and Achishana together, and what's the avoid of such a thing? How do we tap into that? Because we'll see that's the best way you want Mashiach to come, Be'ita and Achishana. To wait for Be'ita, why wait? To just have Achishana on its own, as we'll see, it comes with a price. But Be'ita Achishana, that's what you want. And it seems that the Rebbeinu Shalom is maneuvering and manipulating world history and Jewish history in particular in such a way that he wants Be'ita Achishana together. So let's begin like this. Let me fill you in for a few minutes on a lesser known controversy within Jewish history. It's not something that many people know about, but it's like this. Around the year 1812, approximately around the year 1812. So this was during the Napoleonic Wars. I mentioned Napoleon, Tisha B'Av night. Last night I mentioned about Napoleon. Avia Vaisatum, as they said, all the tzadikei emes. When Napoleon was fighting with the Tsar, as we'll speak about in a moment, there was a big machlokes amongst the tzaddikim who to back Napoleon or back the Tsar, and each side had different reasons for it. But kul yal mamaida that Napoleon was the samach mem. Like everyone was masking to that. And it's such an interesting thing because, if you ask any Jewish people that are into history that are not so connected to Pinimis, they'll tell you that Napoleon was one of the Oivei Yisrael. He was the opposite of an anti-Semite, and although he presented it like that, but in Pinimis, mamash samach mem. But during the Napoleonic Wars, the final stage of the Napoleonic Wars, obviously, as we know, was one of the final stages, is when he, surprisingly, shockingly, no one expected this, when he was aggressive towards Russia, when he went into Russia. And that was the end. I mean, that led, eventually was defeated, and he was exiled, brought back, Waterloo, the whole Maisa. Around the year 1812, so you could ask all historians what prompted Napoleon to invade Russia. The real answer is Remendel Rimanov. That's the real answer. Remendel Rimanov, around the year 1812, saw a Pesach, he saw an Indian of Geula, and Remendel Rimanov, on one Tish Friday night, he said the following statement. He said, "We need Mashiach to come, Hadek Hetev. Hadek Hetev." Does that mean? Remendel Rimanov said that Achishana, in order for Mashiach to come quickly, it demands a certain amount of blood. There's going to be a tremendous amount of sacrifice. Yidden, Rahman al-Islam, there's going to be tragedies and death and all sorts of difficulties by Am Yisrael in order to get Mashiach to come. And Remendel Rimanov was of the opinion that it's Kedai. It's Kedai. If it means that Mashiach is going to come quickly, even if it means with the sacrifice of blood, of Jewish blood, it's Kedai. And so Remendel Rimanov, this is our tradition, they're pushing buttons and pulling strings, whatever tzaddikim do. He forced Napoleon's hand to attack Russia, to go into Russia. And at that time, because of that, a tremendous amount of tsaras and agamas nefesh happened to the Jewish communities throughout Europe. The Tsar would just chop Jewish kids into the army. It was terrible, mamish terrible. Mamish terrible. But all of this, Remendel Rimanov decided it's kedai, because it means there's an opportunity over here for Mashiach to come achishena quickly, and even if it means with dam, it's kedai. And people would come to Remendel, they would come to him and say, the daven for our kids, they're being drafted in the army, tsaras. Remendel, this tekufa, it sounds a little bit harsh, but he would respond, he said, "Who's crying to me? Your guf is crying to me, but your neshama wants Mashiach. And so I'm willing to sacrifice the sound of your voice for the sound of your neshama." This is the opinion of Remendel Rimanov. It's a harsh thing. Remendel Rimanov held this way. He wasn't the only one. The Kishnitzer Magid was also someone that was behind Remendel Rimanov in terms of pushing this. The Kishnitzer Magid, the Chayz of Lublin, was also, those three, Be'ikr, were the tzaddikim that were very much about making Mashiach come early, even if it means, and it means, in order for Mashiach to come early, it means blood. And it's Kedai. Mitzad Sheni, you had another group of tzaddikim that were very much anti this. They held B'shita, this is incorrect. Not stam because of philosophy being daichik, it's the case, but to bring Mashiach at the price of Jewish blood, it's not Kedai. Wait for it to be Be'ita. B'roisham, you had Naftali Ropshitzer. Naftali Ropshitzer was himself a semi-chassid of Remendel Rimanov. And at that tish, by the way, that Remendel Rimanov announced his plan of Hadek Hetev. Hadek means to crush. Hadek Hetev means to crush thoroughly. And again, that means tsaris, but it's going to bring Geula. Naftali Ropshitzer responded, Hetev Hadek. Hetev Hadek means that any dchika that should be, it should be Hetev. It should be in a good way, not in any difficult way. So Naftali Ropshitzer was fighting however these wars are waged among tzaddikim. He was fighting against Remendel and against that trio of tzaddikim. Eventually, he even was able to convince the Kishnitzer Magid to a little bit cool down that approach a little bit. It was Naftali Ropshitzer. Rab Nachman Breslover was also very opposed to this. Rab Nachman Breslover, in fact, sent a letter. Amongst Breslov tradition, there's such a thing that he sent a letter to Remendel Rimanov saying that I know what you're trying to do. It's not going to work. I'm stopping it. I'm blocking you. It's not going to work. This is the opinion of Remendel Rimanov, of Rab Nachman Breslover, Naftali Ropshitzer. It was also the opinion of the Heilige Kamarna. Let me share with you a few lines. This is from the Kamarna in his Sefer Heichel Bracha at the end of Parshas Chayisar. It's a phenomenal thing. The whole mice over there with Eliezer, Eved Avram, being sent to find Rivka, to get Rivka out of Golus over there and to bring her back to the house of Avram Avinu, Avram and Yitzchak. So he says a phenomenal thing. He says, "Be'emes kol ha-parsha shel Nesui Yitzchak," this entire parsha of Yitzchak Avinu and the whole mice with Rivka, Meremezes al Gul Hasida. It's all a remiss to Mashiach. And he says like this. He says, when Eliezer asked Avram Avinu, what if the girl doesn't want to come? Rivka Imenu being taken out of Golus, that's foreshadowing Klal Yisrael being taken out of Golus. And Eliezer's question to Avram Avinu is that what's going to be if she doesn't want to go? The question was as follows. Dahainu. Shadayin lo yagia es ratzinu geula sheyayichad hakadosh hazeh hachashuv. He says what Eliezer is asking Avram Avinu is that what should I establish as the, assumption over here? What if Klal Yisrael is not ready for geula? What if the tikkunim and the yichudim are not in place yet in order for the geula to come in a way of rachmim that Rivka Imenu just comes, just leaves the house of love and Basul in an easy way? The question was, "Hahashev ashev es bin chal aretz." Should I bring Yitzchak there? Who's Yitzchak? We know Yitzchak is Midas Hadin. That's Gevura. Should we force Mashiach to come Achishana, even if it means with Gevuras? That was the question. Shian Haga v'hayichud af begolis begevuras Yitzchak Midas Hadin hakosha. And said the Gemara of Oz that if you use Yitzchak Avinu, yeduchka basar duchka. There's going to be tzaras after tzaras for Yisur and Merurin, and bitter tzaras. V'oz al yada yagula, and it will bring the geula. V'lo yitzdarach arichas hagols kol kach. Goals won't have to be as long. When you have this crushing after crushing, it causes Mashiach to come quick, as we'll speak about soon. So he says that was the question. That was Eliezer's question. So Avram Avinu, the father of compassion, responds to Eliezer, don't bring Yitzchak there. I don't want the gul to happen in such a way. The gul should come in a way of rachamim, in a way of chasadim, not in a way of gvuras. And even if it means it's bita, then it's kedai to wait. So you have these machlokes. Now ultimately, Remendel, again, whether it be from Rav Nachman, Rav Naftali Ropshitzer, the Kamarna, all these tzaddikim opposing the way of Remendel Rimenover, Elaisa didn't work. Mashiach obviously didn't come through the Napoleonic Wars. Remendel Rimenover famously said on his deathbed, he said that, listen, what am I supposed to do? I try the best I can, it's not going to happen. He said, now Mashiach isn't going to come until they're able to come up with a worm that's green and has iron teeth. No one knows what that means, but that's what he said. It means Mashiach is going to take a while. No. The truth is, even later on in history, this machlokes sort of reared its head again in the beginning of World War I, in the year 19, I think World War I broke in 1913, like that, 1913. 1914. So in the year 19, maybe towards the end of 1913, they sent letters to, a request was made to one of the Gdolei Hador, the Minchas Elazar. The Minchas Elazar, maybe you should make a communal fast, something to be poel rachmim, to be mevatel the war. So the Minchas Elazar sent a letter to all of his chassidim, and he said, I am not going to daven to stop the war. We have a Kabbalah that wars in general, and particularly this big war, it's a shas rachamim for Mashiach, even if it means that it's going to come with tzaras. What I'll daven for is that this should cause Mashiach already. But I'm not going to daven that the war should end. That was his response in 1913, 1914. The same thing happened in the 30s when things started to get really bad over there in Germany. They also sent a delegation to the Minchas Elazar that he should daven to be poil something, and he said, I'll daven that Mashiach should come from this, but I'm not going to daven that it should end. It's a chomer de gezach. Mitzat Sheni, you had other tzadikei emes at the time, especially in Eretz Yisrael, Sfardish and Mekubalim, they were trying very, very much to stop the wars from happening. No. All right, there's a lot to talk about. Again, maybe later I'll stop the recording, I'll tell you something about somewhat of current events. But so this is the machlokes. This is the debate of Beit Achishan. In other words, we have these two modes of Mashiach coming. We have a little bit now clarity, of what these two modes are. Be'ita means Mashiach coming b'midas harachamim. It means it's a predestined time and you just have to wait it out and it gets there. And then you have this way of Achishana, of Mashiach being forced to come early. And we're seeing that the way that this happens, the Gemara calls it Zachu. But without us all being tzaddikim, the alternative path of Achishana is with Gvuras and Dinim. And it's also connected with Zachu, because that's what Gvur is. Gvur is Din, and Din means you deserve it. And you deserve it either because you're a tzaddik or you paid for it. And so that's the way of Achishana. And as I said from the Gra, the Eitzah, what the Rebbeinu Shalom really wants is not Ita or Achishana. Really what he wants is Be'ita Achishana, both together. Okay, so you have to be mazbeh with this. Okay, so, like I said, I prepared this before Tisha B'Av, when I had more energy, and all of you had more energy, so you'll bear with me. Okay, you bear with me. It's not a simple idea. Okay, let's ask a very basic question. What is this inyan? What is this idea that Mashiach has a predestined time? Like, what is that? We're just so used to the idea. Like, yes, it's a time. Why? Well, just stam. One way to think of it is that it's just a carrot. Like the Rebbeinu Shalom is holding that carrot. He wants you to do tshuva. He wants you to become a good girl and a good boy. So, do tshuva, I'll give you Mashiach. But that's not how it works. Be'ita means it's going to happen one way or another, whether you deserve it or not. It's going to come at its allotted time. So what is this inyan of having an allotted time to begin with? What is this inyan of Be'ita? Okay, so to answer the question, we have to answer another most fundamental question, which, what is time exactly? How do we think of it? I know it sounds like, okay, what's this guy talking about? Tisha B'Av afternoon, he's going to talk about these types of topics. I'm sorry, what am I supposed to do? I talk about these things. So, but I'll do the best I can to make it as simple as possible. again, we tend to think our reaction, our experience in the world is such that the shtender I'm standing in front of is the same shtender as it was 10 minutes ago, and it's going to be the same shtender it's going to be in 10 minutes from now, and just time is moving, the clock moves. I mean, that's our experience. That's not really the truth. That's not really the truth. We say this every day in davening, that every single second, what time is in truth is that we're moving from one entire reality into a next. Imagine, it's hard to find Mishalom to this, but imagine it's like you're going through a tunnel, and every single section of the tunnel, it looks identical. You know, it's like the same shtenders there, but you're literally moving. I'll give you maybe a better example. You know those flip books of those cartoon books from the time, maybe some of you were kids or when your parents were kids, you know, those flip books, right? So each page is a still picture of whatever it is, right? With a slight difference. A slight difference. But the chap is, you flip it quick enough, and it's just like, it's a transition. That's really how Metzius is. Every single moment of time is really just a single page, an entire universe unto itself with a slight difference. And just the Rebbeinu Shalom makes it in such a way that we are transitioning from one page to the next so quickly and so seamlessly. It just feels like it's just like a moving picture. But in truth, every single second is a new universe. Introduction number 1. Number 2. All these pages that we go through in time, from page 1 to page 2, again, seamlessly, we're moving from one page to the next very, very quickly. But all these pages, the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't create them. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't create page by page as it comes. It says in Pasuk, Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, v'ha'aretz ha'isa soyu v'havoyu v'chayshach al pnei sahaim. Everything was chaos and void and empty. What's the description over there? So this is a klal again. Every single one of these points is a shir by itself, and it's really not for now, honestly. But just mamish kimetis menachrakim, just a little glimpse into what's the truth. The Sfar HaKadosh and the Ari HaKadosh revealed that in the beginning of time, the Rebbeinu Shalom created every single one of the pages that would take us from the beginning of time till Moshiach. Every single page was created in the very first moment of creation. But every single page was created in the very first moment in a chaotic, unperfected, damaged state. That's what's being described as v'ha'aretz ha'isa sayu v'vayu. The chaos that was going on is that everything that will ever be until Yemaisa Mashiach, every blade of grass, every moment, every idea, you name it, everything that we experience in life from the beginning of time until Mashiach was all created at that very moment, Bereishis bara Elokim, es hashamayim v'es ha'aretz, and everything that's in between. But that entire Metzius of es hashamayim v'es ha'aretz was toyu v'vayu, was absolutely chaotic. Every single page was incomplete, so to speak. Every single molecule and atom of every single entity on every single page was bombarding each other, was just completely chaotic. Like you can imagine, I'll give you an example. I'm not actually giving you an example, but just a description of what a chaotic system would look like. Like now we take it for granted that, 7:20 on what day, I don't even know what day it is today. Today's Thursday. 7:20 on a Thursday is going to flow into 7:21 on Thursday. But that was not the way it was in the very first moment of creation. The very beginning, chaos, which means that you went from 7:20 on a Thursday into 6:13 on a Wednesday in 1842. Absolute chaos. There was no order, no rhyme and reason. Every moment, it's like 100 people in a room, and everyone is vying to come out of the same door at once. Absolute pandemonium and chaos. And every single page, complete chaos. Sayu v'vayu. The way this is described in the Sfar HaKadoshim is that all of Metzius, sounds a little bit crazy, it's true, all of Metzius in this chaotic state was under the jurisdiction of the Klippa, under the jurisdiction of Tumah, of the Sitra Achra. The other side, the side of Tumah is all about chaos. That's all it wants is chaos. That's all it wants is chaos. The Rebbeinu Shalom is order, the Rebbeinu Shalom is system, the Rebbeinu Shalom is Toiv and Yashar. Everything that's Tumah is all about chaos. The best thing the Yetzer Hara could get a person to be is chaotic. It's the best, because then it's all over the place. All of Metzius, in its imperfected, chaotic state, was under the jurisdiction, was within the belly of the beast. That's called the Sitra Achra. And from that chaos, the Rebbeinu Shalom begins creation. That's called V'yomer Elokim Yehi Ar. Va-Yehi Ar. And Yehi Ar means, I am now going to begin to repair all that chaos. I'm going to now take from that big package of just craziness that's within the belly of the beast of the Sitra Achra, I'm going to pull out a particular page that's called moment number 1 of day 1 of creation, so to speak. And I'm going to organize that day. I'm going to organize that moment. Not completely, because I'm going to leave, says the Rebbeinu Shalom, some imperfection there to allow the human being to do something. Our job, in other words, what's happening any moment. Any particular moment is the Rebbeinu Shalom is going into that vacuum, into that bag of craziness that's called the Sitra Achra, where all time and space and reality is all confused in there, and he pulls out the material for a particular page of the coming moment, organizes it enough to give some level of order to our lives and to our experiences, but leaves some cracks and some chaos in those moments to give us something to do. So in other words, what we're doing as Jews is that we're moving from page to page. We're being given. In other words, let's put it this way. Any particular moment, just to make it clear, any particular moment starts off in the belly of the beast. Absolute chaos. It's then taken from that belly, from that place of tumah, and is then presented to us in a semi-perfect state. Not completely perfect, but perfect enough for us to be able to manage with it. And because it's perfect enough, it's somewhat perfect, so we can handle it. There's a shtender here, and things are not crazy, and every molecule of our bodies are not fighting against each other. There's order, but there's enough disorder that belly of that beast that's holding on to all future moments is still present enough in our experience right now, in this page that we're experiencing, to give us temptations, to give us nisyanis, to give us something to work with, right? And so our job is to finish what the Rebbeinu Shalom started. That's Avodas Hashem, to finish what the Rebbeinu Shalom started, to become shutfim with the Rebbeinu Shalom and Ma'aseh Bereishis, to perfect this particular page of time that he's presenting with us, that he's presenting to us, and to completely disconnect it from the Sitra Achra and from all chaos. And then when we do that, this page then goes behind us with all the other pages that have been perfected in all of world history until this point, and we move on to the next page. The concept of Mashiach coming be'ita. What does be'ita mean? Be'ita means that Mashiach is the beginning of a new era. But you could only move on to that era when the previous era has been fixed. You can't skip steps. It doesn't work like that. There's X amount of pages that are contained in this era that's called Golus. And in order for us to move on to a new era that's called Olam Haba, Tchias HaMesim, and that doorway that's called Yemais Mashiach, there's still a bunch of pages in that beast over there called the Sitra Achra that need to be worked out. And so Be'ita means, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, like, I want to give you Mashiach, of course, but Mashiach is not like this present, this prize, oh, you're such a good boy, here you go. Mashiach is a doorway into a new era. It's a new place, it's a new time zone. And so in order to get there, you have to work through all the pages to get. You can't go to, if it's chapter 5, you got to go through the first 4 chapters to get to chapter 5. And the first 4 chapters means X amount of pages. And X amount of pages dictate X amount of time. That's called Be'ita. And so if a person, if the choice has been made to follow the path of Be'ita, okay, so you have to just go with it, and it's going to take time until that final page is there. And as I said, every single page is not identical. It comes with a nuanced difference. Some pages are drastically different than the previous page, but this is all called Be'ita. So now, this changes the whole picture of what Mashiach is. It changes the whole picture of what time is, what Avodas Hashem is all about. It changes a lot. But now the question for our purpose is, okay, so how does Achishena work? Again, if Mashiach is just like a prize, the Rebbeinu Shalom is like, you know what, you're being so, okay, you know what, here, have it, fine. You want your dessert, the kids are making you, you want dessert first, fine, just give them dessert first. So fine, then Achishena. But if that's not what Gula is, Gula, it's a system, it's chapter, it's the end of that volume. And you have to work through the pages. So how does Mashiach come in a way of Achishen? How does that work? Okay. The idea is as follows. And by the way, the double question is, how does it work? And why, however it does work, why does it work dafka with sacrifice, like the Mendel Rimmen? Why does it come with dinim, like blood? Why is that the way? The answer is as follows. There's only one way to... You have to rectify every page. There's no way around that. That's not the answer. The answer is not to skip steps. You can't skip steps. But There is a way to rectify all the future pages that we need to fix until the coming of Moshiach without having to wait for the Rebbeinu Shalom to pull it out of that bag. How do you do it? By jumping into that bag. You know, remember the Maisa, we all know Yom Kippur, we lay in it, right, with Yaina. Yaina is swallowed up by the fish. And from the bosom of the monster, from the belly of the beast, he davens and he emerges. There is a Mahalach in Geula. There is a Mahalach in Geula, and very, very big tzaddikim have tried this and failed. Very often, not all of them, but very often they failed in trying to do this, which is to try to get it to be Achishena. In other words, to be Masake in all future time, all future moments in history that you're not actually experiencing right now, by putting yourself in the belly of the beast where all that chaos is, and somehow being able to emerge out of it victorious with everything that the enemy has swallowed. The pasuk says, I'm trying to find ways how to explain this. The pasuk says, Chayil bala v'yakena. It says in pasuk that the enemy swallows you up only to vomit you out. There's such a thing that the Gemara Megillah talks about this with Haman versus Mordechai. There's such a hasaga, there's such a musig, is that, put it this way, one of the major themes of the Kinnis, again, I apologize if I'm a little bit disjointed. I'm trying to find the Pesach. One of the major themes of Kinnis is Mesiras Nefesh, dying al Kiddush Hashem, like Sarugei Malchus, Yid and dying al Kiddush Hashem, sacrifice. Why is that such a big inyan? Why is that such a powerful thing for a Jew, Rachmana litzlan, to die al Kiddush Hashem? You know why? Because when a Jew dies al Kiddush Hashem lo Oleinu, what's happening is that the Samach Mem, the Sitra Achra, that beast, that chaos, embodied by the guy, is swallowing up the Yid. That's what's happening when a Jew is killed al Kiddush Hashem. The Jew is being swallowed up by the guy. Kedusha, the Jew who embodies everything that's holy and right and rectified, is being swallowed up by that monster of chaos. But now here's the trick. Although it's terrible, it's tragic. The page that you're on, that you're experiencing that tragedy, it's overwhelming. It's sad. We cry about it. But Chayil bal v'yakena, the enemy swallows the person up, only to be forced to vomit out not just the person, but everything else that he has. The mitzias of a Jew dying al Kiddush Hashem means that the neshama of that Jew is being swallowed up by that monster, by that Leviathan, by that beast. But then when the neshama, because it died al Kiddush Hashem, what's amazing is that because a person dies al Kiddush Hashem, again lo Oleinu, they have a kapar for all their avainas. The Shachari writes this, that even a Jew who's killed al Kiddush Hashem unwillingly, a Jew is just killed because he's a Jew, not because he didn't sacrifice his life. He was killed because he's a Jew. Automatically, all of his avainas are mesukim. So now you have this interesting mitzias. You have a neshama kedaishu tahir, a pure and holy that deserves to go right up to the mamish akisi hakavod, but it's in the lowest place right now. So matzah minas minai, you have a klal and halach of matzah minas minai. Something always connects and awakens its species. When that neshama hakedaishu v'atayra is in the belly of the beast, but it has the right to emerge out of it, to be vomited out. What does it bring along with it? Every other davar kaddish that's contained in that belly of the beast, every other page, every other moment of time that has potential holiness contained, the tzutze kedusha as we call it, those moments in time that are in the belly of the beast emerge out as with that neshama as it ascends to heaven. Now again, it's complicated because not one neshama is connected to every single page and every single aspect of every single page going forward. So that's why there's many Jews, unfortunately, in history that have sacrificed their lives. But this is the mitzias of dying al Kiddush Hashem. The eitz of Achishana, therefore, again, simply put, the mahalach of Achishana, how do you preemptively fix future moments in time without having to wait for them to come to you, is to go to them. And the way you go to them is to allow the Sitra Achra to overtake, and then from the belly of the beast, through the Mesiras Nefesh that the person sacrificed, by allowing themselves to be swallowed, then they emerge out with all the matmaina, with all the treasures that the Sitra Achra had. This is the side of what the Ribner was talking about, that Achishena with Midas Hadin, that if Yidden, Rachmana litzlan lo Oleinu, duchka basar duchka, are crushed and abused and broken and shattered and swallowed up more and more by the enemy, that automatically will bring to the tikkun. It's not just like a schar, like you paid so much, I'll give you a present. That's how the tikkun takes place in a way of Achishan. But as I said, this is a machlokes. As the Kamaran already mentioned, Avram Avinu gave an eitzah. I don't want it to be like this. I've mentioned to a number of people over the past couple of weeks as well, is that if the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted Mashiach to come in such a way, it probably would have happened already. I mean, this could happen quick. There's no reason for it to take this long if you're going to opt in this way, V'achishan. So just for another few minutes, so what's the right approach? I should say right. What approach does the Rebbeinu Shalom seem to want us to take? So as I said from the Gaon, the vast majority of his life was Isaac and Gula and Inyani Gula, the Sugis of Gula. He's the Mar de Shmaitza when it comes to Inyani Mashiach. More than anyone else in a certain sense. The Gaon is the Mar de Shmaitza. So the Gaon taught that the way of Gula is going to be Ita and Achishan. So how does that work? How does such a thing happen? That in a way that you're making it happen early, by fixing all future moments, by going into the belly of the beast, that's the only way, but yet in a way that's without Mesiras Nefesh and Dam and Dinim and so on. So there has been an approach, a mahalach, which many tzaddikim have done, which is to go into the belly of the beast, not with dying al Kiddush Hashem or God forbid anything physically violent, but by doing an Aveir Lishma. Because that's also the same thing, right? When a person does, let's say God forbid, an Aveir Lishma, then what's happening at that moment is that their neshama is being sacrificed. You are literally being swallowed by the Sitra Achra. And if they then do a L'Shem Shemayim, or they do tshuva for it, then no, the neshama leaves with all those matmoinim. That's another mahalach. This is what Adam and Chava were thinking about. Adam and Chava, they eat him from the Yetz Hadas. Rebbeinu Shalom said, don't. So why did they? Because they knew that in the Nachash, there's a lot of stuff over there. There's a lot of pages in that Nachash. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling us not to eat from the Yetz Hadas, but I know what that means, said Adam and Chava. That means it's going to be a long mahalach. And I want Geula now. And what I'm going to therefore do is disobey the Bari Olam. Again, it's a complicated sugya. There's levels of that chait as well, but I'm going to disobey the Bari Olam, Laman Shemai B'Ahava. And that's going to get me out of there. This was the Mahalach of Adam and Chava. On some level, Moshe hitting the rock with that kavana. A lot of sugyas in Torah are about this. It never worked. It never works. It never works. Whenever a human being on their own is sacrificing themselves to the Sitra Achra, it never works. It always has to be done to the Jew. That's always the klal. Avram Avinu was also doing the same inyan by going down to Mitzrayim, and he was successful. He was successful. He went to Mitzrayim and was able to take out a lot of Rechush Gadol from Mitzrayim, paving the way for Klal Yisrael to come out with Mitzrayim with a Rechush Gadol, which is the same story of going to the belly of the beast and coming out with a lot of treasure. But Avram Avinu was successful. Klal Yisrael was successful because we were sent there. To go there yourself, you don't do. When you go yourself, then you don't have that shmira, you don't have that siyat d'shmaya necessarily. It's a big sugya. So that's not going to work. So that's off limits. To mamish do that mahalach of literally going into the Sitra Achra voluntarily in a way of mamish doing an aver l'shem shemayim with the objective of doing tshuva and getting out with more than you came in with, it might conceptually work, but it never does, and it's a bad idea. So what's the other way? There's another way to do this, and this is in the writings of Rav Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin, the sugya of tshuva mi'ahava. Tshuva mi'ahava means as follows. It means that, I say this tongue-in-cheek, Baruch Hashem, I think we have enough averis so we don't have to volunteer to take on more, right? So I think there's enough of us, there's enough of ourselves that are in the belly of the beast already. So I think we're ahead of the game in terms of Adam and Chava, and Moshe Rabbeinu. We're ahead of the game. Again, whether it happened voluntarily, because of us, who knows? You could blame a million people. Lamaisa, there's enough of us that already, there's enough, a part of us that's already in the belly of the beast. No, so a person does something wrong, now you have to do tshuva. But there's two types of tshuva. There's an important distinction. There's two types of tshuva that we have in Yiddishkeit. There's a tshuva which is called a way of Yosef HaTzadik, the tshuva in the way of Yosef, in the way of the Tzadik, and there's a tshuva in the way of David HaMelech, in the way of Yehuda. What's the difference? It's a big klal. Tshuva, the way of Yosef HaTzadik, is, as Yosef HaTzadik did, is vayonas vayetze hachutza, is to run away from that mistake, is to run away. The way of the tshuva, of this type of tshuva, is that the person goes with the objective of trying to, I'm not trying to rescue anything there. Finished. Whatever's there is there. I'm running the opposite direction. The Gemara says, for example, that, before that, that's one mahalach. That's the way of Yosef HaTzadik. It's interesting. So Yosef Tzaddik runs away from Eishes Potiphar, and the Gemara says that because of that, the medrash, because of that, the schar for Yosef Tzaddik is that as Klal Yisrael by the Yamsuf, so Vayonas, the Yamsuf also retreats before Aron Shel Yosef. The one that runs away from Averis, so the nisim that happened to him is a way of things running away. It's interesting. So by Yosef, the way is to run away from the ocean. Nachshon ben Aminadav, the Nasi of Shevet Yehuda, runs into the water, as we know. So Yosef runs away, Yehuda runs towards. What's the way? What's the tshuva of Yehuda? The tshuva of Yehuda, as I was talking about earlier, also about the Sarugi Malchus of Riusa Deliba. The tshuva of Yehuda means of course I'm going to stop doing the Avera. That's without a question. Of course that's tshuva. That's basic tshuva. Charot azivus achet, that goes without saying. But the chiddush of the tshuva of Yehuda, of Moshiach ben David, of Nachshon ben Aminadav, of the Baal Tshuva, is that I'm going to use that experience to propel me forward. I'm going to learn from that experience to become a better person because of it. I'm going deeper than that. I'm going to use that part of me that's in the belly of the beast, I'm going to use that as momentum, as jet fuel, to push myself to even want God deeper. I mentioned this in one of the Sunday chaburas that the Ishbitzer points out that there's a big discrepancy between the carbon oil and the carbon chat. It's very, very much bekitzer. The carbon oil, we know the entire body of the oil is burnt on the mizbeach, but the dam of the oil is thrown on the mizbeach on the bottom half. The bottom half of the mizbeach is where the dam of the oil goes. The chatas is the opposite. Most of the body of the chatas is not burnt on the mizbeach, but the dam of the chatas goes in the top part. What's the difference? So said the Ishbitzer. The oil means the tzaddik. Why does a person bring an oila? Because they love God. They have nothing to say they're sorry for. They just want to bring a carbon. That's a tzaddik. So therefore, the entire body of the tzaddik is holy, pure, unblemished. The whole thing is offered on the fire. But the dam of the tzaddik, dam means chamimus, it means rotzen, it means rus deliba, it means I want God desperately. I can't stand not being close to Him. Bottom half of the mizbech. Passion is not so much there. He doesn't know what it's like not to be with God. The chatas is the offering of a Baal Tshuva. And therefore, because of that, his body's blemished. Most of the sacrifice is not burnt on the mizbech, but the dam of the chatas, the experience of what it was like being in the Leviathan, of Yonah being swallowed up by the fish, to know what that's like, the Gehenna that was, that fuels the fire of the Baal Tshuva. The Baal Tshuva wants desperately to get out of there, and to mamish jump out of there with a greater force than the tzaddik can. The dam of the chatas is in the top of the mizbech. Nachshon ben Aminadav runs into the yam, where Yosef runs away from the Yam. The Yam means Mayim Hazidoinim. Mayim means the waters of the abyss, the waters of chaos, the waters of Tumah. All those nisyonis. It doesn't mean that Nachshon ben Aminadav embraces Averis, but it means that he embraces what the Averis have created within him. The fire, the passion, the desire, the bitterness that the Averis have done to him, he embraces it. He doesn't run away from it. The Gemara says, there's a lot to talk about. The Gemara says, for example, it's a strange Gemara. The Gemara says in Shabbos, I think it's in Shabbos, the Gemara says that the Gemara is comparing Talmidei Chacham of Chutz La'aretz versus Talmidei Chacham of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says a phenomenal thing. The Gemara says that Talmidei Chacham of Chutz La'aretz used to wear a very chashuv begadim. Ekishes, frocks, whatever you want to call it, very chashuv begadim. Whereas the Chacham of Eretz Yisrael wear they went pashut. What's the difference? So says the Gemara, well, in Chutz La'aretz, they don't feel comfortable because they're amongst the Muslims. They have to make themselves feel better with wearing chashuv clothing. That's not a Yushan, that's a Bavli talking, so they're saying about themselves. What's the oimik of that Gemara? So he says, or Tzaddik says like this, phenomenal. He says, what does it mean to wear chashuv clothing? Clothing means everything that makes you a human being. It means your guf, your midas. He says that the Jews of Chutz La'aretz weren't strong enough, weren't confident enough to really face head on the monster from within. They couldn't face it. And what they had to do is therefore take their humanity, put it in a closet, and put on beautiful clothing like a malach. Because I just have to, like Yosef Tzaddik, running away from Eishes Potiphar, I just have to pretend it never happened and just move on. Which is a good strategy initially. Sometimes you need to do that. There's a tkuf in a person's life where you have to be Yosef Tzaddik, don't get me wrong. That's the mahalch of Yosef Tzaddik. And therefore the Chum of Chutz La'aretz, which is where Yosef Tzaddik's malchus is in Chutz La'aretz by Mitzrayim. Because of that, they had to wear chashuv begadim like malachim. But in Eretz Yisrael, the place of malchus based David, the place of Yehuda, that place, you should have the confidence and the strength to be able to face your humanity. You should be able to acknowledge the mistakes that you've made and use that as fuel to get yourself out of it. Let's understand this, the pneumius of what's happening when a Jew does that. When a Jew learns from their mistakes to motivate themselves even stronger to become better. What the pneumius of what's happening is bi'ita achishana. It's bi'ita achishana. You're acknowledging that part of you that's in the monster, and you're getting it out of there. And when you get it out of there, it pulls along much more matmoinim that you went in with. But now, what's happening in this way, it is not with violence, it's not with gavuris and dam, but it's happening, it's dam, but it's not the dam that's flowing in the streets, God forbid. It's the dam of the chatas. It's the dam of the nefesh adam that's boiling, that's on fire with wanting to come back to who they're supposed to become. And that dam goes on the top of the mizbeach. This is the eitzah of Bita Achishana. What the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from our generation is to become, I mentioned this a couple of Shabbosim ago, of tzaddikim and bali tshuva together. A tzaddik is the way of Be'ita. Things are smooth, you just wait because, Golas isn't bothering me so much anyway. I'm a tzaddik, right? So I'm able to handle Be'ita. And then you have the way of the Baal Tshuva. I can't stand it. I got to get out of this. Mashiach is going to come in a way that we're both tzaddikim and Bali Tshuva. I spoke about that. It's already not enough time to talk about it, but that's such an inyan. The avoid of our generation is the tshuva of David HaMelech. And every single one, again, it's complicated. I'm throwing a lot out there, but a person has to find this system within themselves of moving, of first disengaging from the actual Ra itself, the way of Yosef, but then re-engaging in the fire that's created from that experience. This is how you're meyached, Moshiach ben Yosef and Moshiach ben David, is that you disengage from the actual Ra, but you certainly engage with the bitter taste that the Ra gave you. And you use that as fuel to get every part of you out of that belly of the beast. And to use that part of you that was swallowed up by the monster as fuel to get out of it with even more force. Chayil bolav yakena. Bez Hashem Mashiach is going to come very soon, and it's going to be revealed in this way of the Gaon, of Be'ita Achishan, and things are going much quicker at its right time. Mashiach should come in the way of Rachmim and Chasadim, but quick also with Tshuva Mi'ahava, Tshuva of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. To see the yichud of all these tzadikei emes coming together to be Makal Pnei Mashiach, B'vis Mashiach Zakenu, Meher V'meinu Amen.
Hello, Mr. Ben Moshiach, in Baruch the Moshiach Yussie Eliezer, Ben Aaron Levi.
Baruch Adonai Hamvara. Baruch Lelamed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Banu Nikol Va'amim. Natnu Torah Baruch Ata Adonai Natina Torah.
Amen. Vayomir Adonai al Moshe b'sol lecho shnei luchos avonim karishonim v'chosavti al haluchos es advarim asher hayu al haluchos harishonim asher shibarto v'yeh nochon laboiker v'yolisav aboiker lahar Sinai v'yitzavto li shomar roishor v'yishlo yaleh imach v'gam yishayiro v'chol hahar gam atzem v'yavakar al yiru el mul haharahu.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natnu Torah Kemet B'chai Olam Netaptechenu Baruch Ata Adonai Natina Torah.
Ephraim, Gabriel, Ben Rabbi Yehuda Avram Shlishi. Oh, you're Maftir. My bad.
Amen. Vayivsol shnei luchos avonim karishonim vayashkem Moshe v'avoiker vayal el har Sinai kasher tzivo Adonai Yosei vayikach v'yodo shnei luchos avonim vayired Adonai be'anon vayisatzev imo shom vayikro v'shem Adonai vayavor Adonai al pono vayikro Adonai, Adonai, Rachel Mechanun, Erech Apayim, Rach Chesed Bemes, Netzech Chesed Lo Alofim, Meseyavo, Emapeh Shavchato, Vinake Lo, Inake Poikeid, Avoy Novoi, Sabonim Yavinei Vonim, Al Shileshim Yaribim, Vayimaher Moshe, Vayikoyar Zavayishacho, Vayoy Merim No, Motzasi, Chen Beinech Adonai, Yelech Na Adonai Vikirbeinu, Ki Am Kishei Oyrefu. Isolacto, Lavoninu, Lchatosenu, Lchatonu, Vayoy, Merine Anoichi, Baris Viris, Nege Kol HaMichol Enetzen, Niflois Asher, Lo Nivru B'chol Haaretz U'Chol HaGoyim V'Ro Cholom, Asher Ato V'Kirbo, Yes Maaseh Adonai Ki Noirahu, Asher Ani Oisei Imo.
Hagba? Perfect. Tzadik. Meliva. You told me you know you're going to Meliva. I'm in the way. Yazay Proshadaka, Vishov, Machvoisov, Vioshoy Veladina Virachameo Veloheinu, Kiabelisloyach, Kilo Machvoisai, Machvoy, Sechem, Lodachem, Derochay, Neum, Adonoi, Gavushamayim, Yoretz, Kain Gavu, Derochay, Midachem, Machvoisai, Machvoy, Sechem, Ki Kasher Yerei, Hageshem Yasher, Legmin Hashomayim, Vishom Alo Yoshuv, Ki Miro Esoretz, V'hoilidoch, v'itmichoch, v'nosan zera lazereh, v'lechem lo yichel. Kein yedvar yasher yitzei mipi, lo yoshuv elai reikom, ki imoso es asher chovatzli, v'itzliach asher shlachtiv. Ki v'simcha oseitzeu v'shalom tuvalun, heorim v'hagivois. Yiftuchu l'fnechem rino, v'cholatzei asodeim chalchov. Tachas anatzutz yaleh v'roish, v'sachas asirvad yaleh adas v'yoyel Adonai l'shem, v'yoyzei lom lo yikareis. Ko yomar Adonai shimrim mishvo v'asut tzedakah, ki kiroi v'yishu asilavoi v'zikasi l'higalois. Asher enoi shasezoi suven adon yachazik bo, shomer shavos michaleloi v'shomer yadoi me'asoi tzkoro. V'yomar ben anechor, Hanula el Adonai le'mor, Havdei Avdi v'ani Adonai me'alamoi, V'yomar asoris heinani eitz yovesh, Kicho yomar Adonai l'asorisim, Asher yishmeru es Shabbos oisai u'vacharu, Asher chavotzi u'machazikim v'vrisi, V'notati lohem v'visi u'chemesayot v'shem, Toy mimanim u'mibanois, Shem lo meten lo Asher lo yikareis, U'bnei hanechor hanuvim al Adonai l'shor nisoi, U'lehavoi Shem Adonai li'oslo l'avodim, כל שומר שבוס מחללוי ומחזיקים בבריסי ואביוסים על הרכוצ'י וסימנתים בבייס ובילוסי עולייסיהם וזבחיהם לרצוי נמזבחי כי בייסי ולא יקרא לכל העמים נאום אדוני אלוהים וכבש מלכי ישראל אלוהי הכבש עולו לנקבצו
אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, נאמן אומר ויעשה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דברו אמת וצדק. נאמן, אתה אדוני אלוהינו בנאמנים דבריך, בדברך מדבריך, כל ישוב ריקם, כי המלך נאמן רחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני. נאמן בכל דברו. ציין כי בייס חיינו, לעלו בס נפש תישיע, במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני. שמח ציון בבונך. אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, מלכוס בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגיע ליבנו, עד אשר לא ישב זר, לא ינחל לא ידע חייבים כבודוי. כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לא ישלח בנהרה לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני.
Israel, Maklos man karib and broad run me on love and broad Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avosseinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov El Hagadol Hagibor V'Nayra El Yom Gamel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avos U'Mevigal V'nei V'neihem L'man Shmo V'Yavo Melech Ozer Moshiach Mogein Baruch atah Adonai Mogein Avraham Amen Hagibor Lam Adonai Mechai Mesim Atah Rav Moshiach Morinatah Machal Kochaim V'Chesed Mechai Mesim Rabbim Rabim Sameich Noflim Rotei Cholim Matir Asurim Mechai Memon Solishin Hamfar Yikom Achabag Rosa Midom Melach Machmei Mesim Mechai Matzmiach Yeshua Neman Atal Hachios Mesim Rakato Adonai Ayam Mesim Amen Shachanari Chakanom Siach Sosa Mikodesh Amshal Shulchan Kedusha Kakos V'Yad Mechar Karzel Zevi Amah Adonai Tzad V'Char Tzvadol Masam Mishamchem Adonai Min Kamal Drekach Shvach Kasev HaKadosh 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 Kol Yom Yom V'Kasel HaKiyel Melech Gadol V'Kadosh Ata B'Rakato Adonai El HaKadosh Atachanen L'Adam Das Lamed L'Nashina Chanen Rein Chachach Mavino B'Das B'Rakato Adonai Chanein Adas Hashivenu Miloso Zachar Kaven Rogel Avodah Zachar V'Achzireinu V'Seshuva Shem El V'Nacha B'Rakato Adonai Zeh V'Seshuva Zachar Navinu V'Chatana M'Chalon M'Alkenu V'Vashem V'Al Tamas Alachata B'Rakato Adonai Adonai L'Islam Reino V'Ninu Reino Galenu Gula Shleima Merelon Shvecha Kiel Gal Chazakata B'Rakato Adonai El Yisrael Amen Adonai Amen Yom Samtani Senu Kivasara Gadola Anachna Tefen Rel Rashena Valtasar Panachim Mena Valtasala Mitzvino Senu Heyana Karav L'Shaba Senu Inaga Chazakal Anachamenu Term Nekrai Lachanenu Kadavash Namar Hayato Mikro Vaniana Odhe Medavrim Ani Yeshma Yata Adonai Haneve Sarav Hadem Atzil Chalisar V'Sukha B'Rakato Adonai Yisrael Yisrael V'Sarav If not know even their affairs, Hashem Nimashek, he says Ata Vale Fushem El Chamakosei V'Yam Abro Feinem Anrachman Ata B'Rakato Adonai Ovei V'Leim Yisrael Orei Chalenu Anolenu Hashem Azaz Eskom Nexo Solotava V'Sein Bracha V'nei Adam Avzavinu Mitava Rech Shazir Kashemata Basa Bracha Yatav Mitava Tav Rech Hashanim B'Rakato Adonai Rech Hashanim Kam Shofar Gadol L'Chei Rusenu Sanei Sakabei Tzkuli Yosenu Kapteni Yachem Neira Me'arbaka Vazar Tzlar Tzenu B'Rakato Adonai Yisrael Yisrael Hashem Shotenu Kibar Rishonu Yotzenu Kibar Chila Vaser Mimenu Yoga Manocham Lo Kolenu Me'ara Barakat Adonai, Badcha B'chesed Rachmin Zaken B'Zedek U'Mishpat, Barakat Adonai, B'Chesed Zaken Mishpat. L'Mashimati Zikva, Chalmin Krega Yomedu, B'Chalbem Chameri Krezi, B'Zei Dimera Saker, Shaber, Magir, B'Skalem, B'Sashmulim, B'Sachniim, B'Meirab Yomedu, Barakat Adonai, Shaber, B'Nashni Azid. Al Tzadikim, Al Chasidim, Al Ziknem, Shir Samcha B'Yisrael, Al Pleitas B'Yisrael, Magir Tzadik B'Elinu, Yamuna Rachmach Adonai, B'Tzei Samcha Tov Chavos, Shimcha B'Emes, Simcha Kenerim, U'Elam Lonim, Shkimcha B'Technu, Al Chas Kol Gadol B'Emes, B'Samim Nishan, B'Rakat Adonai, Nishan B'Tech L'Tzadikim. Amen. L'Shleim Recha Brachmim Tashuv, V'Zishkam V'Sofa Kasher Divarta, U'Bnei Osa B'Karov, B'Yameinu, B'Nyan Olam, V'Chisei David, Abdecha Amira, L'Sofa Tachim, Nachem Adonai L'Heinu Esablei Tzion, Esablei Yushalayim, Eser V'Acharei V'Avzuya V'Shavima, V'Avilami V'Libaneha, V'Acharei V'Meinu Noseha, V'Avzuya Michmoda, V'Shavima Mein Yoshev, Yosheves Roshach Ofoi, K'Yishachar Ashalo Yolada, V'Yablu Al-Yonos, Yirashua V'Nezarim, Yotira Samcha Yisrael Acharim, Yargu B'Zadar V'Chasidei Elyon, Al Kain Tzion B'Mar Techbev, Yushalayim Titain Kala, Libi Al Chaleim, May I Al Chaleim, Kiat Adonai Beish Yitzata, Beish Atasim L'Bnaisa, Kamor Vani Eye Lod, Adonai, Chumas Eish Saviv U'Chavod Eye V'Socha, Baruch Atah Adonai, V'Nachim Sion V'Nei Yushalayim. Es Tzemach David Abdecha Meiras Atzmir, Kana Trum Shosecha, Ki L'Shuascha, Kivinu Chayim L'Tzavim L'Yishua, Baruch Atah Adonai, Atzmir Kern Yishua. Baruch Aman, Shema Koleinu Adonai Leinu, Chus Rachim Leinu V'Kabel, Barach Ratzon Esklosenu, Gelshmet Glos L'Sachnu Nemata, U'Panach Malkeinu, Rekamal Shvenu, Chaninu V'Aninu Shmet Glosenu, Kato Shmet, Fas Kol Ve'am Chol Yisrael Barachmin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Shalem Tfilah. V'tzei Adonai V'am Chol Yisrael, V'Sosam Shei, V'Shei V'Sabon Elohim V'Secha, V'Shei Yisrael Shosam Eirav, V'Askal V'Razon, V'Sosam Demed, V'Das Yisrael Amecha, V'Secha Zena, Einenu, V'Shivcha L'Tzion V'Rachamim, Baruch Atah Adonai, V'Yishmina Sol L'Tzion. Skadal Viskadash, Shmei Rabbi, Amad Rafi, Rusev, Yamlech, Mabusev, Yasmak, Verkaneg, Karmashicha, Kayachanik, Megan, Makayin, Chabeis, Israel, Bagalos, Mankarim,
Nishmeach
Never by Adonai Lamelech al Kol Haaretz Vayomahu Yadonai HaKadosh V'Achad Skadal B'Skadash Shmei Rabban Amen.